Here are 12 things to absolutely not do during prayer and fasting. Number 1, don't try to replace food with water. Of course, you're fasting, so you have to rehydrate often, but do that periodically. That is, you have specific hours to rehydrate yourself, which you respect, not carrying a bottle of water around trying to dilute every urge of hunger that you feel. In doing that, you actually rob yourself of the self-control and discipline you are supposed to benefit from fasting, and you can develop appetite complications from the irregular drinking of water all throughout the day while you're fasting at the time you're trying to break your fast. Number 2, avoid acidic fruits. If you're doing the kind of fasting where you're taking just fluids, then you want to take fluids or fruit juices that are not acidic. So you want to avoid things like pineapple, limes, oranges, lemon. These are fruits that have a strong acid content that could cause irritations for your stomach lining. Number 3, avoid breaking your fast rapidly and or with hard foods. Yes, you've been fasting. Yes, you've disciplined yourself all throughout that period. And when it comes to breaking the fast, many people get carried away and excited that finally it's over, and they indulge themselves in so much food, so much fast, and that can be very dangerous for your stomach. Or they take very difficult to digest foods. So once you're coming out of a fasting, you can consider that you're coming out of an intense exercise. So you have to go slowly and peacefully. Rather, give yourself about 4 hours to break your fast. So the first hour you can take something light, the next hour you take something a little bit more, then the third hour like that. So your stomach is being reintroduced to food. It's particularly critical if you're going for extended periods of fast without food and only with fruits. Number 4, don't hold grudges, malice or any form of negativity towards your brother while you're fasting. These automatically annuls your fast. In Isaiah 58, we see the people complaining to God that they have humbled themselves, they have fasted, but he has not heeded their prayer. And you can see, like from verse 5, it says, you humble yourself by going through the motions of penance, bowing your heads like reeds, bending in the wind, you dress up in burlap and cover yourselves with ashes. Is that what you call fasting? Do you really think this will please the Lord? That is the Lord asking them. And he says, no, this is the kind of fasting I want. From verse 6, free those who are wrongly imprisoned, lighten the burdens of those who work for you, let go of the oppressed, forgive, share, love, care. And God is saying this is actually the kind of fast that you want. So if you're fasting and you're holding grudges, you're holding malice, you're holding a disagreement or a discontentment which you haven't gone to sort out with a brother or with whosoever it is, then you're automatically making your fast void. Number 5, unforgiveness. In Matthew 5:23, Jesus was saying, if you're bringing your gift to the altar and you remember that your brother has something against you, not that you necessarily have something against them, he says, do not give your gifts, go and reconcile with your brother. A gift is an offering, and you committing yourself to wait on God, to humble yourself and fast, is your offering unto the Lord. Number 6, sin in every form. It goes without saying that if you're setting out time to go closer to God, you cannot be doing the things that displease God in that process. Many times, even what people consider the little things like lies telling or not telling the complete truth and others are the kind of things that can undermine your efforts in fasting. Now, when it comes to things like addictions, many people do take on fast so that they can get rid of some addictions, and sometimes in the process of the fast, the enemy may want to discourage them and they find themselves falling back in the same thing they have just engaged weapons of mass destruction, if you call it that way, fasting, just to get rid of. In these situations, don't get discouraged. No matter how many times you fall, you have to pick yourself up and restart again, and this time starting smarter, correcting the mistakes that brought about the last failure and eliminating the other things that could have caused you to fall. Number 7, conflict with your spouse. 1 Peter 3 verse 7 reminds husbands to treat their wives correctly so that their prayers are not hindered. But this definitely goes both ways. So you want to avoid conflict either with your husband or with your wife while you're on fasting so that your prayers are not hindered. Number 8, do not indulge your flesh. Once you're going on a fast of something like food, The tendency is your body is going to try to adapt for the lack of what it wants, which is food, by having you replace it with something else. It could be gaming, it could be movies, it could be TV, social media. And so you're trying to indulge your flesh so that it can compensate for what it cannot get for something else that it really likes. This automatically compromises the effectiveness of developing self-control and discipline throughout your fast, and therefore compromising the fast itself. Remember, the word discipline is synonymous to fasting. So if you find yourself letting loose and letting the flesh feel free on any other thing than spiritual engagements and spiritual nourishing exercises, then you're probably going off course. Number 9, indiscretion to exposure to people and things. Of course, if you're fasting and you're working, you cannot do without interacting with people at your work or at other places. But it's important that you know that once you're in the moment of fasting, you're in a moment of being set aside for God. So you must be discreet in your amount of communication, exposure, and interaction to anything other than the presence of God. Number 10, perhaps the opposite of number 9, overly announcing or making a show of your fast. Jesus said when you fast, it's not about going on public to make everyone know that you're fasting. You know, someone can offer you a drink or food and you just say, well, sorry, I can't have that now, but I would love to have it some other day, some other time. You know, you don't necessarily have to slap it in the face of everyone. No, you devil, get behind me, tempting me with chocolate or this because I'm fasting, I'm fasting, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. That's just overly making a show of your fast. And what did Jesus say? You have already gotten your reward on earth, so you won't get any reward from God. Jesus says as we are fasting, we should be dressed, we should be proper, we should be neat, and we should be discreet in our approach to that fasting. And the last two, which are the most obvious, of course, going without word study and meditation. The word of God is God himself, so you can't spend time with God or set aside time to be spent with God and then you don't study the word or spend time meditating on the word. Then the fast is not really a fast. And lastly, going without constant, continuous prayers and fellowship. Someone said fasting without praying is nothing more than dieting. So if you're going to be spending time with God, you want to be discussing with him and you want to be receiving responses and instructions from him all throughout your fast. So you need to have set aside times to pray and to meditate and to fellowship with the Spirit of God all throughout your fast. And even if you're going to be in a busy day at work, running up and down, you have to condition and discipline yourself to be in an atmosphere of fellowship. You know, you pray in your spirit, you pray in your heart, you pray in your mind, but you're constantly connected to God. Else the enemy seeks to get you carried away and just get mixed into everything. And before you realize, before you remember that, oh, I was fasting, and then you get back to it. So those are 12 things you should absolutely not do during your fasting. I would like to know from you in the comments below, what are other things that you probably did that ruined your fast? Please share with us in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I want to say a big thank you